Greetings, traveler of hours. I am the Watcher. Before we drift into the past, tell me, where are you listening from and what time is it there? I read every note before I rest. Now hush the room around you. Dim the lights. Let the modern world sigh its last. Because tonight, we do not walk into a hall of kings or the thick heat of battle. Tonight, we slip into the quiet hour just before everything falls apart. Before you imagine yourself in the body of a hero, before you lift a sword that was never yours, ask instead what would truly happen if you lived in a world untouched by war. Until it touched you, this is not a story of warriors. It is the story of someone like you. Someone who knew the shape of a spoon better than the weight of an axe. Someone who lived not for glory, but for bread and warmth and love. And then one morning you heard the oars. You smelled the smoke. You ran barefoot through frost and thistle, and the sea spat forth a nightmare you had only heard in fireside murmurs. Let me take you there, to the forgotten coasts, the reed-fringed rivers, the places where ordinary lives were broken not by destiny, but by the tide. This is the tale of surviving a Viking raid, why you'd struggle on day one. If my voice brings you comfort, you may choose to follow me, and drift beside me through the age of ash and silence. Let the past wrap around you like wool warmed by the hearth. There is pain in this story, yes, but it is quiet pain, sleepy sorrow, and perhaps in the ruins a kind of reverence. Are you ready? Then come. The wind has changed, and the longships have come. The fire has gone out again. You feel the cold before you open your eyes, a damp, stubborn chill that seeps in through the stone floor and settles in your bones. The hearth is dark. The air smells faintly of old smoke and wool, and your fingers are stiff as you reach for the heavy cloak at the foot of your bedding. It's still early, but there's work to be done. There's always work to be done. You live in a small timber house, the walls packed with mud and straw to keep out the wind. Outside the door, the village is just beginning to stir. The sky is pale, the sun's still behind the trees, and there's a sharpness in the air that says the season is beginning to shift. A few thin trails of smoke curl from nearby rooftops. Somewhere, a rooster makes its tired morning call, late as usual. There's no reason to expect anything unusual today. It's a morning like any other. You move through the same quiet rhythm you always do. Add wood to the fire. Stir the coals. Wrap your feet in cloth and step carefully across the uneven floor. You check the pot by the hearth. Yesterday's broth still clings to the sides, and pour in a little water to stretch it for breakfast. A heel of bread rests beside it, hard enough to chip a tooth, but it'll do. The house is quiet. Others are still asleep or already outside. You step through the door and take in the world as it is. Mist on the grass, frost on the eaves, the sound of someone splitting wood 2 houses over. A dog trots by, nose to the ground. You nod to it out of habit. You feel no fear, no urgency. No reason to imagine that the day will bring anything worse than a stubbed toe or a burnt meal. In a life full of small worries, sick goats, bad weather, spoiled bread, it never occurs to you that something larger might be coming. And yet, far out on the water, just beyond your sight, oars have begun to rise and fall. Your village is small, maybe 20 households at most. A scattering of timber-framed homes with low doors and steep thatched roofs, nestled between a patch of old woods and the winding line of the coast. There's a stream that runs through it, feeding into the sea, and a foot-worn path that leads to a market 2 days' walk inland. Most of the time, no one comes or goes. You know every face here. You know whose child cries at night, who owns the loudest rooster, and which neighbor forgets to salt their fish. You've known most of them since you could walk. It's not the kind of place where anyone stays a stranger for long. Your days are shaped by routine and by the seasons. In the spring, you plant. In the summer, you tend and gather. Autumn is for drying, preserving, preparing. And winter is simply survival, waiting out the dark months with whatever food and firewood you manage to save. The pace of life is slow, but it doesn't feel that way when you're living it. There's always something that needs doing. Always something just on the edge of going wrong. You help where you can. Maybe you mend nets, Maybe you clean fish. Maybe you weave or tend to goats, or gather kindling from the woods beyond the stream. Your hands are always busy. Your mind too, sometimes, especially at night when the wind rattles the shutters and you wonder if next year will be better. Or worse. It's a quiet life. Not easy, but it's the only one you've known. You've heard stories, of course. Tales of kings and knights and far-off cities where people wear silk and drink wine from silver cups. But those are things from other worlds. Your world is smaller, made of smoke and soil and sore muscles. And even in its hardest moments, it still feels safe. You don't think of yourself as brave or foolish. You just live as you were taught, day by day, doing what needs to be done. You don't know it yet, but that quiet certainty is about to break. You don't need a bell or a clock to know what time it is. The day tells you everything. The light through the doorway means it's time to feed the animals. The smell of the sea rising on the wind tells you the tide is turning. The angle of the shadows across the path lets you guess how long until dusk. It's not something you think about. It's just how life works. There's a rhythm to your days, and once you've found it, you move through it without thinking. The same chores, the same paths, the same conversations. You fetch water from the stream. You split kindling. You sweep the hearth. When the weather is good, you work outside. When it's bad, you stay near the fire and mend what's torn. Sometimes the work feels endless. But when everything is going well, when the harvest is coming in, or the fish are biting, or the roof is finally fixed, you can almost believe this life will carry on just like this, forever. You don't imagine anyone will interrupt it. Why would they? No one important knows this village exists. The king doesn't visit. The bishop doesn't write. You're too far from the big roads for merchants, and too small to be worth taxing more than once a year. When you do get visitors, they're usually lost, or looking for something to trade. There's no sense of danger here. Not real danger. If someone falls ill, you bring herbs. If a cow goes missing, you form a search party. If a fire starts, you shout until the neighbors come running. But there's no emergency plan for anything larger than that. No safe house. No defenses. No escape route. No one's ever needed one. And so you go on mending, carrying, scraping, stirring. Not because it's pleasant, but because it's what people do. Even if something were to change, you think you'd see it coming. You think you'd have time. You don't. You've worked every day of your life, but not in a way that prepares you for running. Your strength is the kind that comes from repetition. Hauling buckets, kneading dough, bending to pull weeds until your back complains. Your fingers are calloused, your arms used to lifting, but it's a slow sort of strength. The kind built for steady days, not sudden fear. You're not out of shape, but you're not built to run barefoot through brambles, not fast enough to escape someone chasing you with a blade. You've never had to be. Your body carries the weight of daily life. Some aches, some weariness, maybe a healing injury that's never fully gone. In this world, rest isn't something you get because you need it. You stop when the work is done. And the work is never really done. Food is plain and sometimes scarce. You eat to keep going, not to grow stronger. A little bread, a bit of salted fish if you're lucky. Roots and grains, whatever's in season. Meat is rare. Your muscles don't have the luxury of excess. Your feet are tough from walking, but your shoes, if you have them, aren't built for distance or speed. They slip on wet ground. We're thin at the toes. You can walk all day, but a dead sprint? A climb up a slope? That's a different story. And then there's the fear. You don't train for fear. You've never had to. Maybe once you were startled by a storm or spooked by a wild animal in the dark. But fear of people, real fear, the kind that comes when someone is trying to harm you, that's not something you faced. You don't have a weapon. And even if someone handed you one, you wouldn't know what to do with it. You might swing it wildly. You might freeze. It's not your fault. You were never meant to fight. You were meant to survive in quieter ways. With patience. With effort. With care. But care won't help you now. Not when the danger that's coming doesn't care how hard you've worked. There is no bell tower in your village. No wall. No watchman standing guard at the edge of the forest or the cliff above the sea. If something comes, you don't hear about it until it's already here. And why would you? No one's ever come before. At least not with weapons. The village is too small, too remote, tucked between woods and water like it's hiding. People live here because it's quiet, because they want to be left alone. Most of the time, they are. If someone were to shout, "Danger," it would probably be a joke, or a child playing a game. The thought of someone attacking this place, it feels like a story from somewhere else. Something told around fires in other towns, with names you've never seen on a map. The truth is, you're used to handling problems on your own. A missing goat, a spoiled well, a sick child. You don't send for help. You deal with it. That's how it's always been. There's no system for emergencies because no one planned for anything that couldn't be fixed with buckets or neighbors or prayer. And even now, as you go about your chores, you don't know that anything is wrong. You don't hear the oars on the water. You don't hear the soft scrape of wood against wet sand. You don't see the shapes moving quickly across the beach, dragging boats out of sight. You don't notice the wind shift, or how the birds fall silent, or how even the dogs have gone quiet. The warning signs are there, but no one is watching for them. No one knows what they mean. No one thinks this is the kind of place that gets raided. Not until it is. And by then, it's no longer a warning. It's already happening. They're always the first to disappear. At first, you think they're just playing, off in the trees, chasing each other through the grass, hiding behind low stone walls or curled up in the hayloft. It's nothing unusual. The children in your village are used to making their own games, wandering in little groups with muddy feet and loud laughter. But today feels different. There's a hush to the air. Not silence exactly, but a kind of quiet that presses on the skin, that makes you pause as you kneel to fill the water bucket. You glance around, waiting to hear a shout or a giggle. There's nothing. Then you realize the children are gone. Not all at once. Some were called home early by cautious mothers. Some slipped away when the wind turned strange. A few, perhaps, simply sensed what the rest of you hadn't. Children have a way of knowing things they can't explain. You see a woman peering behind a barn, her eyes sharp, her hands clenched in her apron. You hear someone calling a name, once, then twice, a little louder the second time. There's no answer. The others begin to notice. Heads turn. Eyes scan the edges of the village, the woods, the hills. The normal clatter of morning starts to slow. Even the chickens seem to have quieted. The village isn't panicking yet, but something has shifted. You feel it too. A cold, crawling unease in your stomach. A thought you don't want to speak aloud. And somewhere, out of sight, the children are hiding. Tucked into cellars, pushed behind storage crates, crouched in corners with hands over their mouths. Some have been told to stay silent. Others just know to be still. They don't understand what's coming, but they understand enough to be afraid. And you, standing in the middle of the lane with your hands still wet from the bucket, are only just beginning to understand it too. Before anyone says a word, before the first scream, before the smoke. There's the dogs. They don't bark all at once. It starts with one, low and uncertain, standing stiff-legged at the edge of the path. Then another joins in, whining more than growling, ears flat against its skull. Soon they're pacing, circling, sniffing the air like something's burning. But there's no fire. Not yet. The old sheepdog that usually sleeps beside the baker's door is up and moving. It limps with age, but today it won't sit still. You see it run a few paces, stop, turn, and run again, eyes wide, tail down. Not aggressive, just unsettled. You've lived long enough to know that animals don't get scared for no reason. You stop what you're doing. You look around. Nothing seems wrong. No one is shouting. The sky is still pale. The wind is still low. But something's not right. You feel it in your arms, in the back of your neck, in the way the village seems to hold its breath. Someone nearby mutters that maybe a wolf passed through. Someone else shrugs and says the weather's changing. But the dogs don't settle. They don't lie down or stretch or return to their usual lazy posts. Instead, they keep circling, close to their homes, close to the people they know. A few start following children, herding them gently, nudging them toward doorways. One dog stands growling at the empty hill. That's when the fear starts to reach you. Not as a thought, not even as a word. Just a tightness in your chest. a slow gathering of pressure behind your ribs. It doesn't feel like a moment of panic. It feels like a change in the air, like something unseen has arrived and is just now being felt. You meet another villager's eyes. Neither of you speaks, but you're both thinking the same thing. The dogs know something's wrong, and that means something is. You've heard the stories. Everyone has. Tales told in low voices, usually after dark, when the fire is low and the door is bolted, not for safety, just for warmth. Stories of ships with curved hulls and dragon heads carved on the prow. Stories of men with braided hair and axes, who come without warning and leave nothing but ashes. They're called many names depending on who tells it. Sea wolves, Northmen, heathens, raiders. The priest calls them godless and cursed. Old travelers speak of them like ghosts, unseen but always near, their sails riding just beyond the horizon. You've listened, half interested, half amused. They sound more like monsters than men, creatures from faraway lands, the kind of danger that happens to someone else, in a place with a name you've never heard. They don't come here. Your village is too small, too hidden, too poor to be worth the trouble. That's what you've always told yourself. But now, with the dogs pacing and the children hiding and a stillness crawling over the fields, those stories begin to press in closer. They feel heavier, less like old tales, more like memory. A few months ago, a tanner passed through, carrying news from the coast. He spoke of burned houses and missing villagers, people found bound and left in the woods, whole towns emptied in a single night. No survivors, he said, just broken doors swinging in the wind. You remember how everyone shook their heads, how they said he was just drunk or trying to stir trouble for more bread. You wanted to believe it wasn't real. Now you wonder if it was. The air feels sharper, the clouds are low, and you can't stop thinking about those ships. Long and dark, quiet on the water. How easily they could slide into a bay hidden in fog. How quickly they could land. How fast everything could change. You see it before you understand what you're seeing. A shape, dark and low, cutting through the mist just beyond the mouth of the bay. At first, you think it might be a log drifting in on the tide, or a fishing boat returning late. But then it moves too smoothly, too fast, and it's followed by another, and another. Your breath catches in your throat. They're not fishing boats. They're too narrow, too long. Each one carved like a beast, curved at the front, rising like the neck of a serpent or the snout of some sharp-jawed creature. You can't see the men inside, not yet, but you know they're there. The water doesn't move like that on its own. You've heard those shapes described before, in stories, in warnings. You just never thought you'd see them for yourself. Someone behind you gasps. Another shouts a name, not in joy but in panic. A child screams, and still the ships come, gliding toward shore with a terrible, graceful silence. No horns, no drums, just the splash of oars and the ripple of water. You step back without realizing it. You're not thinking now. Your body is moving before your mind can catch up. All around you, people are running, some toward the fields, some toward the woods, some toward their homes, as if walls and doors could stop what's coming. You look again. There are more ships now. 5, maybe 6, maybe more. You can't count. You don't want to. You see movement. Figures rising, standing, their silhouettes holding spears and shields. You catch a glint of metal in the early light. And then you understand, the stories weren't stories. They were warnings. And no one was ready. Not even you. It starts with smoke. Not much at first. Just a thin ribbon rising above the trees near the edge of the village, where the blacksmith keeps his tools. You think maybe it's just the forge, but it's too early for the forge, and the color of the smoke is wrong, darker, thicker, angry. Then the shouts begin. Not the usual ones. Not arguments or laughter or children playing, but sharp cries, broken and urgent. Voices raised not in greeting, but in warning. You hear someone shout for the bell, but the bell tower is still silent. Either no one's reached it, or no one is left to ring it. People run past you. One woman grabs her child and doesn't stop moving. A man trips and drops a basket, but doesn't stop to pick it up. You turn in circles, not sure where to go, not sure what you're seeing, not sure how this day became something else entirely. Then you smell it, not just smoke, burning thatch, oiled wood, flesh. You feel it in your chest first, the deep, awful truth that this is really happening. That this village, your village, the place where you were born and grew and worked and rested, is being destroyed. And it's only just begun. You glimpse them through the haze. Figures in dark clothes, tall and fast, carrying torches and blades. They move with purpose. They're not searching. They know exactly where they are. They're not here to chase anyone. They're here to take what they want and burn the rest. You want to run, but your legs feel heavy. The world is loud now, screams, hooves, the crackling of fire eating through dry roofs. You see the blacksmith's hut collapse inward, sparks rising like a swarm of insects. There's no one shouting orders, no one telling people where to go. Everyone is on their own, and for the first time you truly understand. This isn't a bad dream. This isn't a test. This is the end of your old life, and the beginning of something else entirely. There's no plan for what happens next. No instructions. No shelter to run to. No warning system that tells you which direction is safe. It all happens at once. People scream and scatter. Some rush toward the woods, others toward the stream, still clutching baskets or cloaks or children. A few stand frozen, not from indecision but from disbelief. Their minds haven't caught up with what their eyes are seeing. You're one of them. For a moment, you stand in the middle of it all, watching the village you've known your whole life unravel in real time. Thatched roofs burn. Livestock run wild, knocking over carts and troughs. A fire has spread to the granary, and now the smoke is thicker, blacker, pulsing with heat. You can't see the raiders clearly, but you feel their presence like a shadow that moves behind your thoughts. You hear doors being kicked in, the shattering of pottery. You hear a man's voice shout something in a language you don't understand, followed by the sharp thud of something hitting flesh. You finally move. It's not graceful. You stumble, feet catching on uneven ground. The air is choking now, the smoke clinging to your skin and hair. You don't have a destination, just a direction. Away. Anywhere away from the heat, the noise, the breaking. Someone grabs your arm. It's a neighbor. Her face is streaked with ash, and she says your name over and over, but you can't understand the rest of her words. She points toward the trees, then lets go and disappears into the blur of bodies and flame. You run. Your feet are bare. You feel every stone, every root. You're not thinking anymore. You're just moving the way animals move when they sense danger they can't see. Behind you, the world crackles and screams, and still no help comes. There is no army, no guard, no hero riding in at the last moment. Just the sound of a village breaking apart, and the terrible knowledge that no one was ever coming to save it. You expected chaos to look wild, random, reckless, desperate. But what's happening in your village doesn't feel like chaos at all. It feels practiced, clean, almost efficient. The men who've come ashore don't move like beasts. They move like builders, tearing down with the same calm purpose you've seen in your neighbors when raising a barn or thatching a roof. They don't waste time. They don't argue. They know what to take, what to burn, and what to leave. Some carry axes, long-handled and sharp. You can hear the thunk of them splitting door frames. Others have blades not meant for war, but for cutting through ropes, sacks, or perhaps throats. Many wear no armor, just thick tunics, belts heavy with tools. A few have helmets or round shields. They look nothing like the monsters from your childhood stories. They look like men. Hard men. Silent men. Focused. They work in small groups, fast and coordinated. One lights fire to a roof. Another kicks in a door. A third stands just outside, watching, listening. They don't speak much, and when they do, their words sound clipped and strange. Guttural phrases that carry no comfort. You try to remember what the stories said they spoke. Norse? Danish? You realize it doesn't matter. They're not here to talk. They open chests, break locks, take tools, cloth, anything that looks like it might be valuable or rare. Some tear jewelry straight from necks or hands. They pull people out of hiding places with hands that do not hesitate. It's not mindless violence. It's method, a system, the kind that comes from doing this before, dozens of times, maybe hundreds. And that's what makes it worse. Because this isn't a moment of madness. It's a job. They came for something, and they know exactly how to get it. The smoke is everywhere now. It clings to your skin, fills your mouth, stings your eyes. It rolls through the village like a living thing, twisting around corners, slipping through windows, curling beneath doors. You cough without meaning to, pressing the crook of your arm to your face, trying to breathe through cloth that smells of old wool and salt. And within that smoke, you hear the screams. They come from every direction. High, raw voices. Some are calling names. Some are calling for help. Some have stopped using words altogether. There's a kind of scream that doesn't need language. A sound of pure fear, stripped of everything but the instinct to survive. You wish you could cover your ears, but you can't. You're moving, stumbling, ducking low beneath the thickest clouds. The world is red and gray and shifting. Nothing is where it used to be. You pass familiar houses now turned into ruins. You see a wall still standing, scorched black. A doorway sagging open with no one behind it. Once, just once, you see a figure run past with a weapon. One of your own, someone trying to fight back. But he doesn't get far. A flash of movement. A dull, wet sound. Then silence. You move faster. There are bodies. Not many, not yet, but enough to make your stomach twist. A neighbor's cloak trampled. A basket of firewood dropped and burning. A dog lying still, smoke rising from its fur. And always the screaming. Sometimes it's someone you know, sometimes not. But every sound carries the same weight, the same helplessness. You wonder where the others are, your family, your friends. You wonder if they got out. You wonder if they're hiding, or if they're already caught. You want to look for them, but you know if you stop now, you won't move again. So you keep going, through the smoke, past the cries, toward somewhere, anywhere that isn't here. But no matter how far you run, the screams follow you. And you know they always will. The trees rise before you like a wall, tall and silent. Their trunks dark with old moss, their branches holding the smoke at bay. You don't remember choosing to run this way. Your feet brought you here through instinct, not plan. And now, breathless, scraped, shaking, you stand at the edge of the forest where the path becomes little more than memory. Behind you, the village crackles, hisses, breaks. The sounds are distant now, but still there, always there. A chorus of destruction, echoing through the trees like ghosts refusing to rest. You step into the woods. The air changes, cooler, damp. The ground is uneven and soft with years of fallen leaves. Roots reach across the path like fingers, grabbing at your ankles. Twigs snap beneath your steps, loud as thunder in the stillness. Every sound feels too loud. You move carefully now, crouched low. Not because you know how to hide, but because silence feels safer than speed. Your breathing is fast and shallow. You pause behind trees, listen, move again. Listen, move. You're not alone. Others have come this way. You hear them ahead or behind. Some crashing through the underbrush, some weeping softly. You glimpse movement to your left. A figure you recognize or think you do. They don't stop. You don't call out. There's no time for reunion. Only distance matters now. The further you move from the village, the more the noise fades. The screaming, the cracking wood, the shouted orders. All replaced by the creak of trees, the flutter of birds startled into silence, the sound of your own heartbeat. And then, at last, a moment of stillness. You crouch beneath a low branch, wrapping your arms around your knees, trying to stay small. You close your eyes, just for a breath, just to rest. But in the darkness behind your eyelids, the fire still glows. And even here, in the hush of the forest, you can still smell the smoke. Not everyone ran. Some stayed because they couldn't leave. Others because they wouldn't. A few, perhaps, simply didn't believe what was happening until it was too late. The old woman who refused to leave her goats. The priest who stood in the doorway of the chapel, holding a wooden cross like it could stop fire. The boy who went back for his sister. The father who handed his daughter to a neighbor and turned back with a hammer in his hand. You don't know what became of them. You don't want to know. But you think of them as you crouch in the forest, catching your breath. You think of how many stayed, how many never had a chance to choose. The wounded, the young, the stubborn. The ones who had spent their whole lives on that patch of land and could not imagine leaving it behind, not even to save their lives. You wonder what they saw in those final moments. If they saw the raiders' faces, if they spoke, if they fought, or if they simply closed their eyes and waited for it to be over. You remember the blacksmith, his limp, his wide shoulders. You remember how he used to fix the buckles on the children's shoes without charging a coin. He was strong. If anyone fought, it was him. But strength isn't enough when your enemy comes prepared. This wasn't a storm you could wait out. It wasn't a sickness that might pass. It was hands and blades and fire. It was people who knew how to tear apart a village in a single hour, and did. You think of the chapel's bell, which never rang. You think of the woman who used to bake bread for the sick. You think of the dogs. And as you sit hidden among the trees, your arms wrapped around your knees, you feel a strange, bitter ache. Survivor's guilt, perhaps. Or grief. Or just the raw understanding that the world is no longer what it was. Because those who didn't run are gone. And those who did are not yet safe. At some point, the screaming stops. It doesn't end all at once. Just fades, piece by piece, like the last embers of a dying fire. First the shouting, then the crashing. Then even the crackle of burning which seems to withdraw, swallowed by the distance and the trees. And what's left is nothing. Not peace, not calm, just nothing. The forest holds its breath. You sit beneath a low branch, legs folded, arms wrapped around your middle like you're trying to hold yourself in. Your chest rises and falls too quickly. Your breath still catches on invisible smoke. But there are no more footsteps behind you. No more voices. The danger, it seems, has passed. But that's not how it feels. It feels like the world has broken. Not in fire or blood, but in silence. The birds are still gone. The dogs are gone. Even the wind has gone quiet. You strain your ears, hoping to hear something familiar. A cough, a word, a sign that someone you know is nearby. But there's only the creak of wood and the faint snap of something falling. Maybe a branch, maybe a wall. And beneath it all, your thoughts. They are loud now, loud and jumbled. Images flash behind your eyes. The ships, the fire, the eyes of a man you didn't recognize. You try to remember what you saw, what you heard, but your memory feels like a pond churned with stones. Nothing stays clear. You've never known fear like this. Not fear of hunger, not fear of cold. This is something deeper, older, the kind that lives in your bones. You think, what if they're still out there? You think, what if I'm the only one left? You think, nothing at all. Because silence is not safety. Silence is the weight of everything that came before it. And in that quiet, you understand something you hadn't before. The raid is over, but survival has only just begun. It takes time to understand what's gone. At first, you only know that something has ended, that your village, your home, your place in the world has been torn open like a piece of cloth and left to the wind. But understanding what you've truly lost, that takes longer. It begins with names. You whisper them quietly, one by one. Names of neighbors, friends, family. You say them not to summon them, but to remember they existed. You try to picture each face, where they were standing, what they might have done. Some, you're certain, escaped. Others, you're not sure. And some, even as you say their names, you feel the truth behind your teeth. They didn't make it. Then come the places. You think of your house, the way the morning light touched the beams, the cup carved by your grandfather's hand, the small bundle of herbs you left by the window. You remember the scent of the bread you burned last week. You remember the crack in the doorframe and how you always meant to fix it. It's gone now. You know that. Even if the walls still stand, it isn't home anymore. You think of the chapel, the field, the granary. You think of the goat pen, the market path, The old willow tree where children tied bits of string for luck. You think of the life you had built, the things you meant to do, the ordinary plans: mend a cloak, visit a cousin, dry more apples this year. Small things, quiet dreams, all of them gone. What's left is what you carry, and you don't even know what that is yet. Grief doesn't arrive in a single wave. It comes in pieces, slow, jagged, unkind. It will keep coming for days, weeks, longer. You've survived. But survival is not the same as safety, and it is nothing like home. Your mouth is dry. You hadn't noticed it before, but now that the silence has settled, the ache is sharp. You try to swallow. The back of your throat feels raw. Your lips are cracked. You press a sleeve to your mouth, but it only smears the soot. Even the fabric smells like burning. There's no water nearby. Not clean water. Not that you'd trust it anyway. Everything tastes like ash. Your tongue is coated with it, the kind of dry, bitter film that lingers long after the fire is out. Even breathing feels wrong. Every breath carries the memory of smoke, of destruction, the scent of scorched wood and charred wool. And beneath it, something deeper, something you don't want to name. You sit on the forest floor, back against a tree. Bark presses into your spine. You're too tired to stand, too tired to run. The stillness around you feels unnatural now, like the world has stopped moving, but no one remembered to tell your heartbeat. You find something in your pocket, a crust of bread, half wrapped in cloth. You don't remember putting it there. Maybe it was from earlier this morning, maybe yesterday. You stare at it for a long time before taking a bite. Tastes like ash too. You chew slowly, without hunger. Your stomach clenches against it, but you eat anyway, because something inside you says, survive. Even now, even in this, a branch snaps somewhere nearby. You freeze. You don't call out. You wait. Nothing comes. Just a bird, maybe, or another survivor, or a ghost. You don't know how long you sit there, chewing, swallowing, breathing ash. Feels like hours, or moments. Time bends strangely in the wake of fear. The world hasn't ended. You know that, but it's changed, and everything in it, from the food in your mouth to the air in your lungs, now carries the bitter taste of what you've lost. The light still reaches this far. Not bright. Not enough to see clearly, but enough to paint the forest floor in faint orange and red, flickering through the trees like distant embers. It dances across the underbrush, catching in pools of mist and on the glint of damp leaves. The fire is behind you, and yet it feels like it's still chasing. You rise slowly, knees stiff, muscles aching from the cold and the stillness. You step carefully toward the glow, not toward the village, not yet, but just far enough to see where the world has broken. Between the branches, you catch glimpses. The silhouette of a home you once knew, now blackened and skeletal. The remains of a cart still burning in the road. Smoke rising in thick ribbons into the pale evening sky. The fire is no longer wild. It has done its work. Now it simply finishes. You stop at the edge of the tree line, one foot in shadow, the other in that soft, pulsing firelight. Your breath catches, not from fear this time, but from the weight of recognition. This is your village. This is what's left. You thought you'd be too afraid to look, but the truth is the not knowing is worse. And now, standing here, you see it not just as a place that was destroyed, but as a place that once was full. Every building meant something. Every path had a story. And now, the stories are scattered like ash. You kneel and press your fingers into the soil. It's warm from the fire, damp from the morning, still real. The wind shifts. A bit of smoke curls toward you, curling into your hair and eyes, gentle as a sigh. You don't pull away. There's nothing left to do here tonight. But somehow you needed to see it, to stand at the edge, to witness, to remember. Tomorrow you'll have to move, find others, find safety, find food, but not yet. Tonight you stay here at the edge of the firelight, half in mourning, half in survival. The fire will die on its own. It won't be put out. There are no buckets, no hands to lift them. It will burn through what it was meant to burn, then fade. The smoke will drift higher, stretch thinner, then vanish into the wind. And what it leaves behind will be ruin. But not just ruin. Something else lives beneath it now. A spark not in the ashes, but in you. You do not feel strong. You do not feel brave. Your hands still shake. Your throat is raw. And yet you are here, alive. The sun has not yet risen, but the black of the sky has softened. The deep night is pulling away, leaving behind the faintest breath of silver light. You know what you've lost, and you know that no one will return it. But you also know this: you are not the only one left. There are others scattered like you, in the woods, along the hills, down by the hidden streams. Some are wounded, some are alone, some are searching for children, for friends, for anything that made them feel like themselves before this day began. And soon you'll go to them, not as a hero, not with answers, but with your breath, your hands, your will. Because survival is no longer enough. The world didn't end, cracked, and now you must decide how to walk forward through the broken pieces. You rise, your knees complain, your feet sting, the taste of ash still coats your tongue. But the smoke no longer frightens you. This day, this terrible, unthinkable day is over. And in the hush that follows, you begin to imagine the shape of the next one. You wait until the sun rises before you go back. Not because it's safe, not because the fear has passed, but because something in you refuses to let go without seeing it in daylight. The walk is slow, your legs are sore, your steps cautious. You trace the edge of the trees at first, following the outline of your old life as it appears between branches, half-hidden, strangely silent. The village lies ahead, wrapped in smoke and shadow, still smoldering from the night before. You smell it before you see it clearly. The sharp scent of char, wet earth, burned hair, a tang of iron, faint and bitter on the wind. You breathe through your sleeve and keep moving. Then you reach the edge. It doesn't look like home. It looks like a place that was once alive, and now isn't. The paths are coated in soot. The buildings are collapsed or hollowed out, their ribs showing through scorched timbers. The well is cracked. The door to the chapel hangs sideways, broken at its hinges. There are no bodies, or not many. Some were taken, some were hidden, some you don't want to look for, but there are signs. The story of the raid is written in what's left behind. A torn shawl, toy dropped in the road, a broken loom, still strung with thread blackened by fire. You step carefully through the village, as though it might still feel pain. You don't speak, you don't cry, you just look. And remember, your house, if it can be called that now, is a shadow of itself. The roof is gone, the walls are scorched. Your belongings, once so ordinary, lie scattered, their meanings half remembered. You kneel in the ashes and run your fingers through them. They're cold now, and in the stillness, something shifts. Not grief, not rage, but a kind of reckoning. This was your life, and now it is a ruin. But still, you are here, and you have not forgotten. There's no rush. The danger has passed, at least for now, and so you move slowly, carefully, through what was once your home. You begin to take stock, not as a thief or a mourner, but as someone sifting through the ruins of a story you once lived. This is not about what can be saved. It's about what is still here. You find the iron cooking pot, blackened but whole. The wooden ladle scorched on one end. A clay jar, cracked but not broken, still holding a few dried herbs at the bottom. Useless, perhaps, but familiar. You touch it gently, as though it might speak. The hearth is gone. Only the stones remain, scattered like teeth across the dirt. But you crouch near them anyway, remembering where the fire once lived. How it glowed in the evenings, how it warmed your hands in winter, how its ashes once carried the smell of bread and broth. You find your blanket, singed, damp, but still holding the shape of sleep. You shake it out, fold it carefully, then wrap it around your shoulders. It does not warm you, but it holds a piece of something that mattered. In the corner of the ruin, beneath a slab of fallen roof, you find a small bundle wrapped in cloth. You hesitate, then reach for it. Inside, a few dried apples, A scrap of embroidered linen, a spool of thread. You didn't pack this. Someone else did. Perhaps they meant to return for it. Perhaps they never had the chance. You tuck it into your satchel. Not out of need, but respect. Someone tried to carry hope. You'll carry it now. And as you walk the silent paths of the village, no longer a village, but a shell, you begin to name what's missing. Not just objects, people, moments, certainty, but also what remains. The thread, the shape of the land, the sky above you unchanged, a quiet inventory of loss and of life. The ground beneath you is soft with ash. It dulls the color of everything. Stones, roots, broken beams, casting a gray veil over the world. But within that veil, patterns remain, pressed into soot, hardened into silence. Footprints. Some are large and clear. Deep impressions from boots heavier than anything your people wear. These are not the steps of neighbors or friends. These are the raiders. You follow their path unconsciously, tracing the arcs they walked, the homes they entered, the places they paused, the direction they left. Other footprints are smaller, bare, scattered. You recognize them without meaning to. The way a child runs with short steps, the shuffle of someone injured, the quick marks of someone fleeing. Each one tells a story. Each one ends somewhere you cannot see. You kneel beside one such trail, light, hurried, barefoot. The prints run toward a ruined doorway and stop abruptly. No return path, no further sign. You close your eyes, not to pray, just to remember. These traces will vanish soon. The wind will come, or rain, or time. And then there will be no visible proof that anyone lived here at all. You move quietly through the village, following these silent lines, reading the story of the raid as told by feet and ash. You see where people tried to hide. You see where they fell. You see, in one place, two sets of prints, one leading, one following, pressed so close together they nearly merge. You don't know their names, but you know their fear, and in knowing it, you feel less alone. The village is quiet now, but it still holds echoes. And in the soft imprint of a footstep, in the sag of a burned doorway, in the pattern of a path that once led to laughter, you find a strange, gentle strength. They were here, you are here, and the ash remembers both. You hear them before you see them. At first, it's just the faint rustle of movement through the trees, the cautious snap of twigs, the brush of feet through undergrowth. You freeze, heart quickening, unsure whether to flee or hide. But then, a voice calls out, soft, unsure, barely more than a question. A name, not yours but someone else's, spoken like a prayer. Then another voice, then another. They're coming back, one by one, from the woods, from the hills, from the places where fear had scattered them. Men with soot-blackened faces, women clutching bundles to their chests, children eyes wide, hands tight around whatever they had managed to save. A goat limping behind a girl, a dog with ears flattened to its skull. They look around as if seeing it for the first time. And in a way, they are. This is no longer the village they left. You watch them return, each one carrying their own silence. There are no cries of reunion yet, no questions, no tears, just the slow gathering of bodies around burned stone and fallen beams, the careful mapping of what's left. A woman kneels in front of a house, or what was once a house, and touches a blackened doorframe with trembling fingers. A boy digs through the rubble of a grain shed, pulling out an unbroken bowl like it's a treasure. An elder stands in the road, looking not at the damage, but at the hills beyond, as if measuring the path ahead. No one speaks of what they saw, not yet, but you see it in their eyes. They are carrying the same weight you are, the same questions, the same grief, and in their presence, something shifts inside you. A thread pulled taut for hours begins to loosen. Your breath comes easier, not light but steady, because you are not alone. Others survived, others returned, and together, slowly, something will begin. Not rebuilding, not yet, that will take time. But this is the moment just before the first word is spoken. Just before the first fire is lit, not for destruction, but for warmth. The moment when the survivors become a people again. It's not the big things you notice first. Not the broken roofs or the fallen beams. Not even the houses swallowed by smoke. It's the small things, the details that once filled a life. A wooden spoon half buried in ash. A child's shoe, bent but unburnt, left beneath a bench. A charm of bone and thread, hanging still from a doorway. They are useless now, perhaps, but not meaningless. You find yourself walking slowly, eyes drawn to these small fragments as if they were lanterns in the dark. Each one holds a memory, even if it's not yours. A life was lived here, bread was made, songs were sung. Laughter once echoed from these walls. A bowl lies overturned in the path. Someone steps past it, but you stop. You kneel. You turn it gently upright. There's nothing inside. Still, you place it neatly on a stone. It's not much, but it feels like a kindness. Around you, others do the same. A woman gathers scraps of fabric, smoothing them with trembling hands. A man stacks what wood he can find, not to build, just to keep it from sinking into the mud. A child finds a painted stone and holds it close, as if it were gold. No one says these things matter. No one needs to, because in these moments, small, slow, wordless, you begin to see what survival looks like. Not strength, not speed, not fire or sword, but the act of noticing, the decision to care, the refusal to let all beauty slip away. You sit on the edge of a broken wall and run your hand along its top, feeling the grooves left by time, by weather, by the craftsman who built it long ago. You wonder if he survived. You wonder if his family did. And still, the wall holds firm. It does not shelter you, but it remembers, as do you. At some point, someone begins to speak the names. No ceremony, no script. Just a voice, quiet and slow, in the stillness between breath and wind. The first name is said like a question, and when no answer comes, it is said again. Then another follows. Then another. And so begins the inventory. People gather, not in rows or circles, but in ones and twos, drifting toward the sound. They do not interrupt. They only listen. Each name is spoken into the smoke-stained air, each syllable a thread pulled from memory. You don't know all of them. Some were faces you passed only now and then. Others are etched deep into your days. Those you worked beside, broke bread with, shared silence with. Each name brings a flicker of image, a fragment of story. There is no order to it, no tally, only voice, and silence where no voice replies. One man speaks the name of his brother, and his lips quiver. A girl speaks the name of her mother, then falls quiet for a long time. Someone whispers two names together, and you know they were never apart. You step forward only when it feels right. Your voice is thin, rough with ash and sleep, but it carries. You speak the names you remember, even one you weren't sure you would. The act of saying them is both wound and salve. And though the fire has passed, the smoke has cleared, and the village is still, this moment, this quiet roll call, is the most solemn of all. No one will write these names on stone. No scribe will mark them in history. But here, among those who knew them, they will not be forgotten. Each name a spark in the dark. Each silence after a name a prayer. You stand in the gathering, your heart heavy, your breath steady. Around you, others murmur their losses. You are part of something again, not the village as it was, but the memory of what it meant. The names go on, and will go on, as long as someone remains to speak them. By midday, the smoke no longer clings. It lifts in thin, gray threads, vanishing into the blue above, as though even the fire has grown tired. You stand at the edge of what was once the village square, where the well used to draw laughter and cool water. Now it stands dry, its rope blackened, its stones ringed with soot. You watch the ashes rise from the ground, each one light as breath, drifting upward with no destination. The wind has returned, not strong, but steady. It catches the smallest things, bits of burned straw, the curled corners of old parchment, the feather of a hen that never fled. These fragments lift into the air, floating between broken rooftops, skimming the road, vanishing into the trees. Someone nearby says it looks like snow, and it does, but colder. You walk slowly through it, hand outstretched. A flake of ash lands on your sleeve, delicate as lace, then crumbles at your touch. What once was is no longer. Yet, strangely, this moment brings no new sorrow, just a hollow kind of peace. The kind that follows a storm too large to measure. The kind that settles when nothing else can be done. You feel tired, but not broken. And as you watch the ashes lift and scatter, you wonder where they will fall. In another field, upon another roof, into the hands of someone who does not know your name? It doesn't matter. This village will not rise again as it was. The walls are too gone, the hearts too bruised. But in these drifting remnants, these ashes in the wind, you feel a quiet kind of promise. That not all endings are empty, that not all ruins are still, that from fire something else might yet be born. You close your eyes, and for a moment, let the wind move around you. It does not carry away your pain, but it carries something lighter, and in that there is the first hint of hope. They say children forget, but that is not true. They remember in pieces, in senses, in dreams, not in the shape of events, but in the feeling of the sky when the smoke first rose, in the way the world sounded when all the dogs were gone. You see them now wandering the ruins. Not many, just a handful, their faces smudged, their clothes too large. They stay close to the adults they trust, but sometimes they wander, drawn to what they once knew. One stands before the charred remains of a schoolhouse and whispers something only the walls can hear. Another crouches in the dust and builds a village from stones and twigs. Careful, silent, deliberate. One twig stands taller than the others. A bell tower, perhaps, or a watchtower. A child's way of rebuilding 1 inch at a time. A girl finds a scorched doll beneath a bed frame. She holds it gently, brushes soot from its face, and hums a song no one taught her, though all of you know it. The children do not speak of fear. They speak of what they saw, what they carried, what they couldn't find. My goat ran into the trees, one boy says. She had a baby, a little girl tells him. She's probably hiding now, and you nod, because that's how memory begins. In stories, in hope shaped by small hands. They build new paths from what they remember, sometimes with truth, sometimes with magic. They do not understand why the fire came, but they remember how the sky changed, and they remember who held their hand when it did. You sit with them a while. You listen. You do not correct, because this too is survival. Letting the smallest ones remember gently, letting them stitch the world back together with softer thread, and knowing that what they build, imagined or true, will carry the shape of what was lost, and what still may come. There are no coffins, no graves, not as they were once dug with care and prayer. There is only what the earth allows. The fire left little behind. Some bodies vanished into ash. Others were taken by those who struck the blow. And so, the villagers turned to the simplest of rituals, the laying of stones. No one leads. No one commands. It begins, like most things after a great loss, in silence. A woman finds a flat rock and places it beneath the tree where her husband always sat. A boy lays a handful by the chapel steps, where his grandfather once sang. Another group gathers near the edge of the fields, stacking smooth river stones into a mound, each one placed with care. You join them. You don't know whose stone you carry. You only know it matters. Your hand closes around a piece of slate, cool and rounded. You kneel beside a half-burned doorway and set it down. Some carve marks into theirs. A symbol, a name, a line of song. Some leave them bare, letting the shape speak for itself. And though no one speaks above a whisper, the air fills with memory. You hear it in the rhythm of hands choosing stone, in the hush that follows each placement, in the shared breath held by all who linger. It is not enough. Nothing could be. But still, this quiet work binds you. You walk past a small mound where 3 stones rest beside a single lock of hair, tied with thread. A man places a stone atop a cartwheel, the only thing left of his home. Children press tiny pebbles into cracks in the walls, one by one. By dusk, the village is scattered with these silent memorials. They do not mark bodies. They mark love, and the refusal to forget. You sit beside your own stone and rest your hand upon it. There is no fire here now, only the soft glow of remembrance. Evening falls slowly, not with drama, but with grace, soft shadows stretching across ash-covered paths. The last rays of sun gilding the ruins in quiet gold. There are no cries now, no running feet, no sudden noise. Just breath and presence, and the long silence after. You sit alone, though not far from others. Some are gathered by the well. Some have made a ring around the remains of the chapel. Some sleep already, curled beneath cloaks, beside fires built from salvaged wood. You don't speak. No one needs to. This silence is not the silence of fear, nor the emptiness of ruin. It is something else entirely. A stillness that holds. A breath between stories. You look around not for danger, but for meaning. The village is not whole. It may never be, but it breathes again. It remembers. It holds its survivors with invisible threads, drawn from shared pain and the simplest acts of care. Someone hums, low and slow, not a song, exactly, but a tune remembered from before. A child repeats a rhyme in a whisper, over and over, as though stitching the day together. Somewhere, the wind moves through the trees like a voice too gentle to speak aloud. You close your eyes. Your muscles ache. Your thoughts flicker. Your hands are black with soot. But you are here. The long silence after a storm is never pure. Carries echoes. But it also allows something else to begin. Not rebuilding. Not yet. But listening. And listening is where healing lives. A footstep no longer startles. A face no longer looks like a threat. A breath no longer tastes only of ash. You feel the hush settle deeper, and you allow it. Tonight there are no plans, no decisions, only rest, only breath, only the long silence after. It begins with a spark, not from raiders, not from torches, not from the hunger of violence. This fire is different, smaller, tender, made by hands that mean no harm. You wake just after dawn, before the mist has lifted from the ground. The village is quiet, sleeping, stirring, dreaming, but one person is already moving. A woman crouches near a ring of stones, coaxing life into kindling with breath and twine. The first fire of peace. She doesn't speak. Her movements are slow, deliberate. You watch her twist dry grass between her palms, then strike flint over it until a coal glows soft and red. She folds the ember into her bundle, cradling it like something sacred. And when it catches, when the first curl of smoke rises into the sky, it smells not of death, but of life. Others gather. Silently, a man offers bark. A child brings a branch, holding it like a gift. The fire grows, crackling not with rage, but with warmth. And soon it spreads not across rooftops but between people. Someone boils water. Someone stirs grain into a pot. Someone reaches out to hold a hand they haven't touched since before the raid. It is not celebration, but it is something like comfort. You step closer, feel the heat on your skin. It makes your eyes sting. Not from smoke this time, but from something else. A soft, aching release. You sit, you eat, you share. The circle widens. Words return, slow at first like birds after a storm. Someone tells a joke, and laughter breaks through like sunlight on soot. It's short, rough, but it's real. And just like that, the village begins to become something new. Not what it was, not yet what it will be. But this fire, this first fire of peace, holds the promise of both. When the fire has warmed you and the first meal is shared, the question rises, unspoken at first. What now? No one says it aloud, but it drifts in the spaces between glances, in the way people scan the horizon, in the quiet sorting of tools and tasks. Not fearfully, not with panic, just readiness. You walk the ruins again, but this time with different eyes. You notice the ground more. Not the ashes, but what lies beneath them. The shape of old paths. The bend in the land where water once ran clean. The patches of earth where something still might grow. A man marks the edge of a wall with charcoal. A woman sketches in the dust with a stick. Not buildings, those will come later, but the idea of them. Where food might be stored. Where a fire might burn. Where children might sleep. It is not a plan. Not yet. It is a map. Drawn in dust. Held together by if. You kneel beside a half-burned beam and trace a line in the soil. You're not a builder, but your hand knows what home felt like. You remember where the light fell best in the morning. You remember where the wind passed gently through the eaves. So you draw it. Others come and do the same. No one leads. There is no design. Just memory turned outward. Imagination whispered into the earth. By noon, the ground is covered in lines. Shapes. Circles. Marks where walls might rise again. Not many speak of rebuilding yet. But in these sketches, there is the suggestion of return. Not to the past, but to a shape of living. You stand back and look at the dust map. It will vanish by evening. But that's not the point. What matters is this. The village breathes again. And now it dreams. Not all healing happens with silence and stillness. Some must move. They rise at first light, these few, scavengers, though no one dares call them that aloud. Men, women, sometimes even children, who drift toward what was broken not just to mourn it, but to find what still might be used. They carry sacks and baskets. Some wrap cloth around their faces to keep the soot at bay. Their steps are careful, practiced already. They know how to see through what others overlook. You join them this time. The air is still cool. Your fingers ache as you sift through debris, ash, splinters, melted tin, half-buried bones of furniture. You find a spool of thread, unburnt, a bent nail, a rusted pot with one good handle. Nothing grand, nothing whole, but everything you find feels like an offering. There is no shame in this work. You've heard stories before of looters, of thieves, of those who take from the fallen. But this is not that. These hands do not reach for treasure. They reach for continuity, for usefulness, for proof that something can still be done. You see a girl tuck a broken comb into her pocket. You do not ask why. Perhaps it belonged to her sister. Perhaps it reminds her of who she was. That, too, is a kind of survival. Others find rope, kindling, cloth. One man returns carrying half a sack of barley. Its outer layer singed, but the rest still good. Another comes back with hinges and door latches, salvaged from a place too far gone to rebuild. Each item is laid out by the fire, a communal pile, a new treasury, not of wealth but of worth, of use. And as the pile grows, so too does the sense that this work, this gathering of what was nearly lost, is not just about rebuilding. It is about respect, for the life that came before, for the people who lived it, for the future that might still rise from these ashes. Hunger returns slowly. At first, it hides beneath grief, tucked away behind the shock and the ashes. But now, days since the raid, it begins to rise. A gnawing, steady presence. Not just a craving, but a question whispered from the belly. How will we eat? The food that remains is little and strange. Smoked meat stored in hidden cellars. A handful of grain unburnt by luck more than planning. A few apples, shriveled but edible, brought back by a woman who had hidden them in her cloak as she fled. Someone found salt. Someone else, a half jar of honey, miraculously unbroken. It is not enough. You feel it in the way people move slower now, their steps measured. You hear it in the pauses between words, the way hands linger over empty bowls. Children chew leaves. Elders drink water and pretend it fills them. You too are hungry, not starving, not yet, but aware, with a sharpness that shadows each moment. You think of how easy hunger was before, how it could be solved with firewood and time. Now it lingers unsolved, just beneath the surface. And with hunger comes fear, not of violence this time, but of absence, of dwindling things, of the long season ahead. So you gather what can be gathered. Nettles from the woods, roots from the softer earth, fish if the stream still holds them, berries, though not many, and not yet ripe. The cook fire burns lower now. Meals grow thinner, but something else appears in their place. Sharing. Not because anyone teaches it, not because there is plenty, but because it is the only answer left. A mother offers half her portion to an old man with trembling hands. A child offers their foraged acorns to a stranger. You find yourself tearing your crust of bread in two, without hesitation. And in this gesture, hunger changes. It doesn't leave, but it becomes something known, something held between many hands. And together, somehow, that makes it smaller. It happens at dusk. The fire burns low, and the villagers gather as they have begun to do, out of habit, out of need. No one speaks loudly. They eat slowly if they eat at all. Some simply sit, staring into the embers as if trying to remember what comfort used to feel like. And then a sound, soft, fragile, not words, just a tone. A woman is humming. At first, you think she doesn't know she's doing it. The tune is too gentle, too dreamlike, the kind of sound one might make while rocking a child or grinding herbs. But her eyes are open. Her hands are still. She is singing. The melody is old, older than memory. A tune from before the fire, before the raid, perhaps even before names were written down. Carries no words at first, just breath and tone, shaped by longing. Others turn. No one speaks. The sound grows, not louder but deeper. Someone else joins in. A second voice, lower, weaving beneath hers like roots beneath soil. Then a third, a fourth. You do not know the song, and yet you do. It rises like mist, curling through the firelight, lifting above the broken rooftops, brushing against the dusk. There is sorrow in it, yes, but there is something else too. Something that has not been felt in days. Presence, continuity, grace. You close your eyes. Let the sound carry you. You do not sing, not yet, but you listen. And in listening, you remember. Music does not rebuild walls. It does not bring back the dead, but it holds the living together. And tonight, that is enough. The fire glows, the voices lift, and through the smoke, the night breathes differently, no longer hollow. The first song after, a beginning wrapped in melody. Not all sleep when the fire dies down. Some remain sitting, standing, pacing quietly near the edge of the village. They speak little, if at all. They carry no banners. They wear no signs of command. But their presence is understood. They are the night watchers. You see them as you rise from your blanket, drawn by the hush of twilight. One stands near the old granary, staring into the trees. Another sits on a broken wall, sharpening a stick not as a weapon, but as a habit. One leans against a beam, hood drawn, eyes half closed but never still. They are not guards in the old sense. There are no horns to sound, no armor to shine. But they watch, not because they expect a return of ships or swords, though that fear has not yet faded, but because something inside them refuses to let the village sleep unguarded. You join them for a while, your footsteps soft on the packed earth. No one greets you. They do not need to. Your presence is enough. You lean against a post, your body weary but unwilling to rest. The night is colder than before, the air damp with dew and ash. A fox passes in the distance. The watchers see it. An owl lands overhead. The watchers hear it. And from the trees only wind. Some of these watchers have lost the most. You can see it in their eyes, hollowed but lit with something stubborn. Others are young, perhaps too young, but they keep vigil anyway. Not out of duty, out of love. Love for what still sleeps. For the children curled together beneath fur. For the elders wrapped in quiet dreams. For the idea that peace, even fragile, borrowed peace, deserves its guardians. The watchers do not speak of heroism. They do not need praise. Only time, only silence, only the long breath of night. And when the morning comes, when the light spills again into ash and memory, they will nod and step back and sleep, knowing they kept something sacred, The mind takes longer to heal than the body. Even as the village settles, even as new patterns form and the smell of cooked grain replaces soot, there are moments, brief, sharp, when you still see smoke where there is none. It happens in the corner of your eye. A shadow too sudden, a sound too sharp, a curl of mist rising from a cup, and suddenly, you're back in the fire. You're not alone in this. A woman jumps when a pot cracks in the heat. A boy refuses to sleep near the edge of the trees. A man wakes gasping, fists clenched, eyes wild, before remembering he is not in battle. There is no fire, and yet it lives in the mind. Some call it ghosts, others memory. A few believe it is punishment from the gods, but none deny it. Even the strongest among you sit sometimes with faraway eyes, watching something only they can see. You begin to speak of it quietly in fragments. It felt like the wind was burning again, someone says. I heard the sails, says another, though no one else did. You nod. You understand. There is no shame in it. The fire carved itself into you, not just into skin or home, but into thought, into breath, into the space where safety used to live. So you learn to wait through it, to breathe when the memory comes, to place your hands on the earth and feel what is real, to name the things you see: stone, tree, sky, light, and remind your heart that it is not still burning. Others begin to do the same. Small rituals form, touching the cold stone of the well, holding hands when sleep feels far away, whispering names aloud until the fear quiets. You still see the smoke sometimes, but now you know it isn't fire. It is only what's left behind, and it cannot touch you anymore. The village does not rebuild all at once. It begins instead with a single path. A man wakes early, before the mist lifts. He finds a rake, bent, soot-blackened, and begins dragging it across the old main road. Not with grand ambition, just to see the earth again, just to feel something yield. The sound draws others. No commands are given. No plans are spoken, but one by one people rise and join him. They bring shovels, branches, bare hands. They move stone, sweep away ash, pull brambles from between scorched fence posts. The road, once lost beneath the weight of fire, begins to show itself again. Hard-packed earth, faint will ruts, the familiar curve toward the east. You walk it barefoot. The dust is softer than before. The air tastes different here, still wild, but no longer ruined. Birds sing above you, tentative but present, as if waiting to see if this path, too, will burn. At the edge of the village, where the trees begin, someone lays a marker. A stone, flat and warm in the sun, etched with a simple mark. Begin. The word feels strange, new. It is not a declaration. It is a direction. This path leads somewhere. To a stream, to the next village, to fields that still grow untouched by fire. It is not a road of escape now. It is a road of return, a tether to the world beyond ruin. Children walk it, elders bless it, travelers, stragglers from elsewhere, follow it back to you, bringing news, bringing questions, bringing needs. And with each footstep, the village becomes less a place of ash, more a place of breath. The first path cleared is not much, but it is enough to carry hope. There comes a day when someone drives the first post into the ground, not for a pyre, not for a barrier, but for shelter. A simple wall, no taller than your chest, made from reclaimed beams and stones pulled from the earth. It's not meant to hold back the world, only to keep in warmth, to keep out wind. The sound of hammer on wood echoes through the valley. It is not loud, but it carries far. People come to watch, not because it is grand, but because it means something has changed. You watch the man measure twice before cutting. You see the way his hands tremble, then still. He builds slowly, with purpose, with care. Others follow. Walls begin to rise, not where they once were, but where they need to be now. A shelter near the fire pit. A roofline drawn differently than before, tilted better for rain. No one recreates exactly. The old village is remembered, yes, but not repeated. You build your own peace. Perhaps it's a wall for storage, or a sleeping place, or a shared table under cover from the wind. You don't rush. You work with others. You listen to the wood, to the stone, to your own memory of mornings before everything burned. There is beauty in it. Not symmetry, not polish, but intention. These walls are not for hiding. They are for living. Children play between them. Old songs return. The wind moves more gently now, tamed slightly by these shapes of home. Someone paints a beam with berry dye. Someone hangs a bell. Someone ties herbs above the threshold. And just like that, what was ruin becomes dwelling. What was ash becomes beginning. The village, once broken, now stands not in defiance, but in invitation. Night falls with less fear than before. The fires built this evening are for warmth, not warning. The food passed from hand to hand is simple, but plentiful enough. Laughter is rare, but it has returned, light and brief, like fireflies at the edge of fields. You sit near the edge of the path cleared days ago, watching the sky deepen into blue and then black. Stars emerge slowly, shy after so many nights of smoke. Above the rebuilt hearths and rising walls, their light no longer feels unreachable. The village breathes as one. Some sleep, some whisper, some mend clothes by firelight, their fingers moving as if in rhythm with an old lullaby. You watch all of it and feel the hush settle. Not heavy, not hollow, just still. Before the raid, you never thought much of stillness. It was just the absence of noise, the end of the day. Now it feels sacred, earned, a silence filled with effort, memory, and the faint echo of possibility. No one knows what tomorrow will bring. Not yet. There may be hunger still and sorrow, and wounds that take years to close. But tonight the world holds. A child stirs in their sleep, and someone murmurs comfort. A breeze carries the scent of wood smoke and nettle soup. The stars keep watch, and so do you. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. For the ones who survived. For the ones who were lost. For the shape of life that dares to return. And as the village lies wrapped in its quiet, and the fire beside you fades to embers, you close your eyes, just for a while. Not to forget, but to rest, so that when the next dawn comes, you will rise to meet it. Before anything else, the smell returns. Not of smoke or damp or scorched cloth, but of baking bread. Faint at first, almost imagined, yet unmistakable. You follow it through the village, through new-built walls and patched paths, past sleeping dogs and newly drawn water. At the hearth of a home rebuilt with care, someone kneads dough. Their sleeves are rolled, their hands powdered with flour. The oven is simple, shaped from stone and old clay, but the heat it holds is steady. And the bread, flat, round, humble, rises like memory reclaimed. Villagers come slowly, not for spectacle, not with noise. They bring their own loaves or their own hopes. Someone trades a root for a crust. A child grins at the smell. An elder touches the outer edge of a loaf as if to bless it. You take a piece. It is warm. It is rough. It tastes of earth and fire, of survival turned inward. Not sweet, but whole. And for the first time since the raid, you do not feel like a stranger in your own place. Tools like people carry stories. They are unearthed now, pulled from sheds half collapsed, or from beneath stones, or traded back from neighbors who had borrowed them seasons ago. A sickle, a needle, a pot hook bent in a familiar curve. Items once taken for granted now return with silent gratitude. You help sharpen them, repair handles, rub oil into iron that had begun to rust. There is ceremony in this work, even if no one says so. It is the ceremony of preparation. The fields will be turned again, the clothes mended, the bowls filled, but not yet. First, the tools must be ready. And in making them ready, you begin to remember what readiness feels like. The weavers gather under the frame of a rebuilt awning, stringing thread between poles, eyes squinting into the sun. Wool has been washed, dyed with nettle and bark. The first colors return. Muted greens, soft grays, brown tinged with warmth. You run your fingers across the loom, rough and familiar. Someone hums. Someone else tells a story. The cloth is slow to grow, but it grows. Inch by inch, the past is woven into something new. A shawl for an elder. A blanket for the next child born. A banner, perhaps, for a gathering not yet imagined. You think of all that was torn, and then you think of this. Hands that still remember the rhythm. Thread that still holds. That evening, a new fire is lit in the village square. Not for cooking, not for heat, but for names. A circle forms. No one commands it. The fire flickers, and one by one, names are spoken again. This time, not in mourning, but in memory. Not whispered, but given aloud, freely. A child calls the name of their sister. A widow names their partner, then steps back into the circle, shoulders no longer bowed. You speak a name too. Tastes less like ash this time. The fire does not consume. It holds. And around it, the village feels not restored, but rooted. When the rain comes, no one runs. It is not the cold bite of storm, nor the fury of gale. It is soft, rhythmic, steady. It falls on reeds, on roofs, on shoulders that do not flinch. You walk beneath it, so do others. Buckets are set out to catch it. Children laugh as it touches their faces. A dog rolls in the mud. The rain becomes a kind of music. It soaks into the soil, wakes seeds not yet planted. The village glistens, not clean, but alive. You breathe it in. It smells of stone and earth and something older still. There are no messengers here, no parchment rich with seal and crest. And yet the first letters are written, on bark, on cloth, on smooth stone, marked with charcoal or berry juice. Some are tied to birds, others left at crossroads. Not official, not ordered, but real. You read one, "To my cousin, if you yet breathe, come. We have bread again. We will share." And you write one too, not because you know it will reach anyone, but because in writing you believe. You walk beyond the last wall, past the last stone laid since the fire. The land is there unchanged, blackened at its edge, yes, but open. The field waits. Someone marks a furrow. Another casts seed. There are no oxen yet, no full plow teams. Just hands. Just hope. The soil crumbles. It remembers the shape of root. It welcomes the return. And though it may yield little this season, it will yield. It always has. They arrive as you once did, quiet, cautious, hungry. A woman with a twisted ankle. A boy who has not spoken in days. An old man with only a walking stick and a name you do not know how to spell. The village does not turn them away. Blankets are shared. Soup is stirred thinner. A corner of shelter is made wider. No one speaks of charity, only of welcome, because the fire taught you. All of us are strangers until we are not. The seasons begin to turn. Leaves change at the edge of the woods. The wind smells different. Someone proposes a gathering. Not a festival, not quite, but a moment to share food, story, music, to mark not what was lost, but what still holds. You help hang the cloth. You bring a dish. You sing when it is your turn, voice rough but real. And as the circle forms again, around fire, around food, around memory, you feel the fabric of life mend beneath your feet. At last, you walk the village not as a survivor, but as someone home. The walls are different, the paths new. The trees lean in strange ways, but it is yours. You kneel near the old hearth, the one that once cracked and fell. You place your hand on the earth beside it, and you feel it, not the heat of fire, but the hum of root. Beneath the ash, life did not die. It waited, and now it rises. Long after the fires are gone, the wind still carries memory. It moves through the village like an old friend, or a quiet spirit, curling around eaves, lifting leaves, brushing coals gone cold. You sit beside a rebuilt wall, listening to it hum through the gaps, and it sounds like voices. Not words, but presence. You close your eyes, and the breeze becomes something older than you. It carries the scent of turned soil and wood smoke, of blooming herbs from the garden, of time itself. The smell is different than before, but familiar in its intention, to remind you that nothing is ever fully lost. A child runs past, a ribbon trailing from their hand, caught by the gust. They laugh, not a loud laugh, but one full of breath and delight, and it mingles with the air like birdsong. You smile, though your hands are still. The world has begun to turn again, quietly, beneath your feet. You think of those who stood here before, the ones whose hands built the first stones, laid the first thatch, sang the first songs around the fire. You imagine them watching, or perhaps listening, caught in the rustle of leaves, the clink of a ladle, the creak of a gate swinging slowly open. They are not ghosts, they are echoes, and they do not haunt, they accompany. The wind shifts, rising a little, carrying with it the faint sound of a drum from the other side of the village. Someone is practicing a rhythm for the next gathering. Not urgent, not polished, just steady, repeating. You count the beats in your mind. You find yourself swaying, ever so slightly, in time. You stand and walk toward the path that leads beyond the garden, where the trees lean low and the moss grows thick. The wind tugs at your sleeves, playful. You remember once dreading the wind, when it meant smoke, carried fear, brought the smell of burning. But now it feels like breath, a great, slow inhale from the world itself. There is no destination, not today, only presence, only the wind and the stories it carries. And as you pause beneath a willow that somehow survived it all, its branches dancing with the air, you place your hand on the trunk. Rough, steady. You whisper a name, perhaps your own. The wind catches it, carries it away. And in the stillness that follows, you hear something quiet, something true. You are no longer only surviving. You are becoming. At the edge of the village, where the last stones of the path fade into grass, stands a tall wooden post. A simple thing carved by hand and weathered by sun. Upon it hangs a lantern. Its frame is wrought from old iron, softened with rust. Its glass is not clear, clouded slightly from heat and smoke, shaped with imperfections that scatter the light it holds. And yet, when the sun sets and the shadows gather, this little flame becomes a beacon. You are the one to light it this evening. The match flares in your hand, and for a moment the world blinks golden. The lantern accepts the spark, cradles it, and begins to glow. The light sways gently with the breeze, not defiant, but enduring. Not a warning, an invitation. You remember the first night it was lit. A child had suggested it, placing the lantern there with help from their elder. No one spoke much about why, but everyone understood. It was not about protection. It was about presence. A signal that the village was still here, still breathing, still kind. You step back and watch it flicker. There is comfort in its steadiness. The flame does not shout. It does not try to banish the dark. It simply holds a place within it. Later, someone will come from the woods. A traveler, maybe, or a neighbor from the next hill over. They will see the light. They will follow its warmth. And when they arrive, no one will ask their reason. The door will open. This is how it has always been and how it must be. You sit near the post for a while, listening to the crickets and the soft shuffle of leaves. The lantern hums quietly in its glass shell, alive with breath. You wonder how many others carry such a light. Across hills, through valleys, hidden in places the maps have forgotten. And you hope, silently, that someone somewhere is lighting one for you. The lantern swings gently, casting its glow upon your face. And in that light, you are not alone. The weavers gather just after the morning mist lifts. Under the rough beams of a newly raised awning, they lay out their work, not hurried, not loud, but with the kind of deliberate grace born of memory. The loom creaks as it is adjusted, tightened, coaxed back into usefulness. Bits of bark dyed will rest in baskets at their feet, soft and smelling faintly of smoke and nettle. You sit nearby, close enough to hear the soft rhythm of threads being drawn through fingers, tightened, released. It's a sound older than the fire, older perhaps than the village itself. The thread hums against wood like breath through reed, like song without melody. It doesn't ask to be heard. It simply is. One woman hums a tune, half forgotten, improvised. A lullaby, perhaps, or a work song passed down from hands now gone. The others do not sing along, but you notice how their movements begin to match its rhythm. A younger girl whispers a story about a goat who ate her mother's apron, and there is laughter, quiet and bright. You run your fingers along a finished length of cloth stretched on the line to dry. It is rough but sturdy, dyed a gray-green with lichen and the dark skins of boiled walnut shells. The color reminds you of rain on stone. Not bold, not meant to impress, but comforting, strong, made to last. A scarf is folded and handed to an elder who has sat nearby all morning, offering quiet company. A shawl is knotted carefully around a woman's shoulders before she sets off toward the stream. The threads follow them, invisible like trailing lines of connection. These are not just garments. They are stories worn on the body. One piece of fabric is being saved, long and wide, stretched across several days of weaving. No one says what it is for, but you know. It will hang one day in the meeting place when it is finished, when a moment feels right. Its pattern is slow to emerge, but if you look close, you can see the shape of branches, the echo of fire, the suggestion of a river's bend. You ask if you might help. Place is made for you. You learn the way thread tightens when pulled too quickly. You learn the patience of warp and weft, of hands that know how to listen before they move. You are not skilled, but you are present, and presence, like thread, holds things together. By afternoon, the awning smells of sun and wool and laughter. The cloth grows inch by inch, moment by moment, and the wind moves gently through it all, lifting the finished edges like flags. Not of victory, but of survival woven into beauty. Stands where the road bends, simple, wooden, unpainted. Two upright posts, joined by a crossbeam carved with nothing more than age. No hinges, no gate to swing or close, just a frame through which one might pass. It was built during the early days of return, when the ashes had barely settled, by hands unsure whether this village would ever hold life again. No one calls it a gate, not officially, but all treat it as one. You walk through it each morning, basket on your hip, heading toward the stream or the thicket where mushrooms hide beneath damp leaves. And each time your step slows, not because of the gate itself, but because of the pause it invites. You find yourself breathing deeper when you pass beneath it, as if the act of stepping through demands acknowledgement, that you are leaving or returning or both. It has become a place of silent marks. Someone once tied a ribbon there, blue, frayed. Another pressed a sprig of rosemary between the wood and a nail. Children tuck feathers or berries into its cracks, gifts left without explanation. And always someone sweeps the ground beneath it. Even when the rest of the village is muddy, the gate's threshold remains clear. You sit near it today, mending a torn satchel, the gate behind you casting its gentle shadow on the path. Travelers come and go. Some are known, some are not. All pass beneath it as though through an invisible curtain. And most glance upward as they do, even if only for a moment. Once it was only a marker. Now it is more. It is a memory post. Farewell. A welcome. A boy once ran to the gate and stopped, breathless, afraid to go farther. Behind him, a woman stood, hands folded, watching. He looked back at her. She nodded. He stepped through. It was only a few paces, but it meant something. From then on, he crossed it more freely. Sometimes, in the hush before dawn, you see a figure standing there, just standing, looking out toward the world beyond. You do not interrupt. The gate listens to many things: grief, hope, longing. It remembers them all. No one guards it. It needs no guard. For those who approach with kindness, it opens the village. For those who carry harm in their hearts, the stillness of that space seems to turn them back. You finish your stitching and rise. With your work in hand, you walk once more beneath the crossbeam. The air feels slightly cooler beneath it, touched by something older than breeze. You step forward. The village greets you with smoke curling from chimneys and the soft sound of pots clinking in preparation. Behind you, the quiet gate waits for the next step, the next return, the next beginning. The first signs came shyly, barely noticed at all. A single green shoot pushing through the edge of an old hearthstone. Moss creeping up between charred fence posts. Wild mint sprouting in the hollow where a water bucket once lay. It began there, quiet and unclaimed, as if the earth itself had decided that enough time had passed. No one planned the garden, simply arrived, or perhaps it remembered itself. It grew behind the well, in a patch where the sun lingers longest, bordered by stones that had tumbled from a ruined wall. A child brought a handful of seeds one morning, dropped by some bird or carried from a hidden store, and scattered them without thought. A week later, something green had taken hold. You kneel there now, barefoot, hands stained with soil. Around you, tall stalks of beans reach for the sky, winding up driftwood stakes. Radishes have pushed up through loam, red-capped and proud. Calendula blossoms, golden, petal-fringed, gnawed gently with the breeze, as if offering both color and comfort. There are no fences, no neat rows. The garden is not ordered. It is alive. Each plant has a story. This time was rescued from the window of a burned home. That squash vine was traded for a bundle of cloth. The small apple tree in the center was planted by a woman who lost her brother and chose, instead of mourning, to remember him through roots. Children care for it now. Adults too, but the children are its spirit. Laughing as they carry water in chipped pots, humming as they tug weeds that grow too boldly between the herbs. They speak to the plants, and the plants, it seems, listen. You pull a carrot from the soil and brush it clean. Its color is vivid against the dirt. You bite into it. The taste is sharp, sweet, earthy. A reminder that life, once buried, can still nourish. There are flowers here that have no use but beauty. Pale violets, wild poppies, a cluster of blue flax that catches the morning light like sky made small. Birds have returned too. A robin hops between rows. Bees drift lazily from bloom to bloom. Somewhere nearby, a frog croaks from beneath the leaves. Their songs have joined the garden's breath, making it more than just a patch of green. It is now a symphony. You lean back, hands dusted with soil, heart full with something quiet and whole. This is not the garden you remember. It is something better. It is what comes after fire. It is what remains when the world chooses, softly and steadily, to grow again. It begins with a child's shout, not alarmed but curious. You rise from where you've been folding nettlecloth and follow the sound to the river's bend, where reeds cluster thick and the water flows slow and shallow. The child stands ankle deep, holding something pale in both hands, their brow furrowed, not from fear, but from the strange shape of the world revealed. It is a piece of bone, long curved slightly, smoothed by time and water, but unmistakable in its origin. Not an animal, something older, human. They hand it to you without ceremony, as if it were a stone or a branch. To them, it is a found object. To you, it is a breath pulled from memory. You thank them quietly and tell them to wash their hands, to return to the others. They go without protest, glancing back only once before disappearing into the sun-dappled trail that leads back to the village garden. You remain by the river. The bone is worn smooth by the current. Not white, but the color of old driftwood. You turn it in your hands. It could have belonged to anyone. One of the villagers who fell, one of the raiders who did not return to the sea. There is no name attached, no wound to read. But it matters. You sit on the bank, letting the water rush past your feet. Nearby, minnows flicker through the shallows. A frog blinks at you from beneath a stone. Overhead, branches sway in time with the current's voice. This place has moved on, but it has not forgotten. The village does not mark graves with fanfare. Those who were buried with stones and silence. But bones returned by the river are treated differently, not as accidents, as offerings, as stories unspoken. You dig a small hollow beneath the moss, beneath the roots of a tree that bends low to the water. You place the bone there gently, cupping it once before covering it again with earth and stone. No words are spoken. Instead, you place a single wildflower on top, white, soft, nameless. It bends slightly in the breeze. Later, when someone asks where you went, you tell them simply, "The river brought someone home." They nod. That is enough. That evening, you find another stone placed near the edge of the water. Then a third, a fourth. Quiet markers. No names. Only presence. And the river continues to flow, untouched by grief, yet always carrying it. Washing, softening, remembering. Forgets nothing. But it forgives. And you return home with damp feet and a quieter heart. It begins, as many things do now, without a plan. One evening, beneath the wide sky and the soft chatter of cooking pots, someone speaks a memory aloud. Just a sentence. A moment. "I remember the way the goats used to cry whenever the wind came from the north," they say, half laughing. It sounded like they were arguing with the trees. The circle gathered near the fire chuckles. And then, unexpectedly, someone else offers a memory in return. You're there, seated cross-legged, a bowl of soup cooling in your hands. You listen as stories unfold, brief, unadorned, not told with the flourish of performance, but with the intimacy of survival. One woman recalls the taste of the last bread her mother made before the raid. A man murmurs a poem he only half remembers, voice halting, his fingers twitching nervously in his lap. By the time the fire burns low, 6 stories have been shared, and a new tradition has been born. Each full moon, the stories return, not with announcement or banners or command. People simply gather. The fire is lit, slightly larger than usual. Children sit with blankets over their knees. Elders lean in close. The circle widens, not only to include the village, but the strangers who have come since. Those who crossed the quiet gate with eyes full of question and found answers in the garden. The bread, the light. You speak once, your voice uncertain. You tell of the night the lantern was stolen, and how its return made you cry for the first time since the raid. Your voice trembles. No one laughs. When you finish, a hand touches your shoulder. A child repeats your last words under their breath, as though memorizing a song. There is no stage, no scribe, but someone begins to keep record. Not with quill and ink, but with beads, strung in patterns that correspond to each story shared. Each beat a voice, a heartbeat, a thread of the village. They are strung on a long cord, kept in a clay jar near the center of town. Not locked, not hidden. Each month, a new strand is added. You think of them as a second kind of memory, not the one in the mind, but in the hands. A story you can touch. And so, when it is your turn again, you do not hesitate. You speak of the willow tree by the river, and the bone beneath its roots. You speak of the wind. You speak of the way the bread smelled, the day the village felt like home again. And when you finish, the fire flickers. A silence follows, not empty, but full. And you understand, stories once shared do not leave. They settle in the soil. They ripple in the water. They hang in the smoke. And those who remember them become keepers. Even you. You first notice it while walking the path between the fields and the outer edge of the woods, where the grass grows tall and the sky opens wide. A single stone standing where no marker had stood before. It is not large, not carved, not placed with any ceremony that you witnessed. Yet there it is, tilted slightly, as though leaning into the earth, and flecked with lichen that catches the late light like old silver. You approach it out of instinct. Something about it feels familiar, though you cannot name what. You reach out and run your fingers along its surface. Rough, cool, pocked by time and weather. There is no name carved upon it. No symbol, just stone. And yet it speaks, not in words, but in weight, in stillness. It has been placed here with purpose. In the days that follow, you begin to notice others coming to it. A woman leaves a sprig of lavender at its base. A child draws a small circle in the dust beside it and fills it with pebbles, then carefully walks away. No one claims it. No one asks whose it is. But it becomes a place of pause. You visit often now, not daily, but when the sky is soft or when your thoughts grow too loud. You bring nothing. You say nothing. You sit beside it, listening to the wind through the grass and the distant sound of life continuing in the village behind you. The stone says nothing. It never has. And that is part of its strength. Once you see someone kneeling beside it, tears running down their face. They do not wipe them away. They let the tears fall, quiet and clean, into the earth. The stone bears witness. When they rise, they leave behind a braid of red thread. Another time, someone lights a small candle there at dusk. It burns down to nothing. Still, the stone remains. You wonder sometimes if it was placed for someone who never returned, or for no one in particular, or perhaps for all of them. All the names that were never spoken at the naming fire, all the faces lost to smoke and time. Maybe it marks not a person, but a promise. To remember, even what cannot be fully remembered. You never ask about it. No one does. But when you pass, you nod once. Sometimes you touch its surface. Once, you leaned your forehead against it, and for the first time in many moons, you felt the weight of grief leave your shoulders like breath. It has no name. It does not need one. It remembers. That is enough. It happens on an ordinary afternoon, beneath an unremarkable sky. You are mending a fence near the western edge of the village, the one that once bordered nothing but bramble and fear. The air is still, the grass high and golden. Bees drift lazily through the wildflowers, and the scent of warm cedar carries on the breeze. You are focused on your work, hands steady, mind quiet. The rhythm of repair has become a kind of peace, a stitching together not just of wood, but of memory. Each knot tied, each post straightened, brings a sense of order to a world once broken. Then a sound, a laugh, soft, pure. You look up. A child stands not far from you, watching a butterfly dance around their fingertips. Their cheeks are sun-flushed, their hair tousled by wind. They don't notice you at first. They are too entranced by the way the light flickers through the insect's wings, by the sheer wonder of a world that simply is. Then they look at you. Their face brightens, not with recognition, but with ease. Their eyes meet yours without hesitation, their expression open and fearless. And then, unprompted, they smile. Not the polite smile of a child being watched. Not the shy, uncertain smile of one who senses danger. This is something else. It is a smile born from safety, from presence, from a life where fear is not the undercurrent of every day. And you, who once stood among the ashes with soot in your lungs and silence in your chest, feel something shift within you. It is small, like a loosened knot, a thread released. This child does not remember the fire. They were born after or too young to know what was lost. They do not carry the weight that rests quietly in the bones of their elders. They do not dream of boats with dragon-proud bows or nights lit red. They smile because the world, to them, has always been like this, full of bread and stories, gardens and lanterns, laughter and wind. And for the first time, you do not feel the need to protect them from the past. You only feel the need to protect the present. You smile back, hesitant at first, then fuller, as the weight behind your ribs softens into something warmer. The child turns, runs back toward the village, chasing nothing, arms flung wide. You return to the fence, but your hands move slower now. The post is straight, the knot is tied, and you whisper as if to yourself or to no one at all, let them never know the taste of smoke. Let them grow only in light. And the sun keeps shining. Dusk settles slow. The village glows with a quiet warmth, not from flame, but from presence. Lanterns sway in the windless air, their small flames steady. Windows flicker with candlelight. Soft footsteps carry across the ground, each one a note in the lullaby of evening. You walk the paths not out of duty, but out of something deeper, something like belonging. Each corner of the village holds a memory, yet none of them press upon you now. You pass the gate and feel not the ache of farewell, but the welcome of return. You pass the garden and see no ghosts, only herbs, flowers, the curl of new squash leaves. Even the stone with no name no longer feels heavy. It simply is. You make no great effort to be seen. Yet those who pass greet you with a nod, a hand lifted, a child's wave. No one needs you urgently tonight. The wells are drawn, the firewood stacked, the soup already stirred. It is a strange kind of peace. For a long time, peace felt dangerous, like the moment before a scream, the hush before wind returns. But now it lingers, and you let it. You reach the edge of the village, where a small rise gives view to the sea in the distance, silver in the falling light. The tide has turned. The water breathes in and out, carrying no ships, no threats, only rhythm. You sit, as you have many times, but differently now. Behind you, the village hums. Laughter trickles like a stream. The sound of someone tuning a stringed instrument rises and falls. A baby cries once, then is hushed. Life moves on, not forward, not back, but inward, rooted. You think of the night of fire, not in pain, but in contrast. You remember the smell of smoke, the press of fear, the way silence used to scream. And then you think of now, of the wind through flax, of the circle of stories, of bread warm in your hands. The last light fades slowly, as if reluctant to leave. The sky deepens from gold to violet, from violet to ink. Stars begin to wake, their first twinkles barely perceptible. You lie back, the earth cool beneath you, the breath of night soft against your cheek. There is no need to keep watch. Not tonight. The village is not unbreakable, but it is whole. The fire is not forgotten, but it does not rule you. And as the final trace of light disappears beyond the sea, you close your eyes. Not in fear, not in exhaustion, but in rest. You are no longer a survivor. You are home. So ends our journey through the cinders and the silence. I have watched over many places like this, villages small and proud, cracked by flame and fear, then shaped anew by those who stayed. There is a rhythm to survival, quiet and slow, like breath after weeping. And you, who have walked beside me through this long dusk, have felt it too. You've stood among the ruins. You've knelt in the ash. You've heard the first song rise where silence once lived. There are many who believe that strength is loud, that it comes dressed in steel, cloaked in firelight, shouting across the hills. But I have always known, the truest strength is gentler. It is found in shared bread, in names whispered without reply, in stones laid for the lost. In watching, always watching, I have learned to trust those who rebuild. And you have learned to listen. If this journey has eased your waking hours, if it has given shape to sorrow, or stilled the tremble beneath your thoughts, then I welcome you to return. When next the stars call you, when next the world feels too loud, I will be here, waiting in the dark, watching with you. Until then, traveler of hours, rest well. The fire has gone out, but the story remains.